What's up? Welcome into this Tuesday edition of Pushing the Pile, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. A jam-packed draft edition. We are almost 2 weeks out from the NFL draft, so we're going to be going through some of the props that are available on players and where they'll be drafted in the NFL draft. We're going to be going back and revisiting our combine bet. We drafted players at the combine, drafting who would be the biggest risers on the CBS draft board. We're going to go back through those and see who got the most points, who rose the most. We're going to go through players who are actually rising in the NFL draft, guys who might think who could be going in the first round, and players who are falling, people who could be on the opposite side of that, who are in a lot of first-round mocks, who may not end up going in the first round when it's all said and done. And then we're going to do a little discount double check. We're going to go through some of the players who are discount versions, your day two versions of your day one players in case you missed out on them. So, fellas, let's get right into it with some props. Starting off with the number 2 overall pick, the Cleveland Browns hold it. The odds right now as it stands, Travis Hunter gained a lot of momentum in recent weeks. He's minus 250 to go number 2 overall. Abdul Carter at plus 170. Shedeur Sanders at plus 1,500. And that's really it. You got Cam Ward plus 6,000, Jackson Dart plus 7,500. But it's one of those three. Emory Hunt seems convinced that it's Shedeur Sanders. Pete, who do you think it's going to be at number 2 overall?
It isn't going to be Shedeur Sanders. That much I can pretty much. I won't guarantee it, but I can pretty much.
Guarantee it, Pete. Come on.
No, I just don't think they're going to take a quarterback, and I think it's going to be Travis Hunter. I think there's some infighting in that building. I think that, they need a play. They want a big-time playmaker on offense, but there's some people pushing back and get out Bill Carter. But I think in the end, I think they're going to take Travis Hunter.
It'll be interesting because I know I had this conversation with Pete, and I'll have it with Mike now, that when you look at Kevin Stefanski, he actually hasn't been able to put his handprint on a young quarterback, right? Baker Mayfield was there when he got there. Deshaun Watson trade, some people will say that he wasn't all the way on board with that trade. And when you look at Shedeur Sanders' skill set, it actually fits Kevin Stefanski's offense perfect if he is the one to call plays. Now, we know last year, I believe him and Ken Dorsey split it. Now they have Tommy Reese. It'll be interesting to see who's going to call the plays going forward. But when you talk about attacking down the seams and those in-breaking routes, that's what Shedeur Sanders does really well. That's why he completed 74% of his passes. So to me, and you know this, Pete, in this league, until you have a quarterback, you have no chance. Like, you can have all the weapons you want on defense, but it doesn't matter unless you have a quarterback. I mean, you can look at the Browns last year, right? They had a pretty good defense, but they had no chance because at the quarterback position. So to me, if you are a believer or if you feel that Shedeur Sanders can fit your offense, it makes sense to keep swinging at the quarterback position, because who knows? What if you go 8-9? You're not going to be in this position to take a quarterback again. Ultimately, though, I believe it should be Abdul Carter. Like, I would love to pair him with Myles Garrett. Mike, you brought up a good point. I believe it was yesterday or the day before, whether I can't remember if it was on Spotlight or HQ Trending Show. And I've been saying this too. When you look at 3 of the top 4 teams, excluding the number 1 overall team, if Travis Hunter goes to any of those teams, he's going to be playing receiver, because all those teams are deep at corner, especially the Cleveland Browns. Like, they're 3-4 deep at corner. So, again, I'm not saying he can't elevate the position at corner, but when you look, they have a need at the receiver position. Now, I love Cedric Tillman. Jerry Jeudy came on strong last year, but Travis Hunter could really help them on offense. And then you look at the Giants as well. They just paid Paulson Adebo. They're probably going to give Deonte Banks at least one more year there. They took Drew Phillips, who's a really good slot corner. So on offense, he can help them right away as well. In New England as well, they have 3 really good corners, so they're going to need an offensive weapon. So I think it should be Abdul Carter. But if you're the Browns, until you get a quarterback, you got no shot.
Yeah, I'm with you, Lachey. Abdul Carter, to me, with Myles Garrett, and like, once you draft him with Myles Garrett's contract as it currently is, you got 5 years of those two. 5 years of 2 of probably should be. I mean, given how hyped Abdul Carter is and given what I've seen from his tape at Penn State, it's like this guy could easily be like the second best edge rusher in the NFL behind Myles Garrett recently in like the next couple seasons. That's not an unrealistic scenario. Having 2 of the top 5 pass rushers in the NFL, I don't care what your back end looks like. I don't care what your linebackers look like. I don't care what your cornerbacks look like. That's going to be one of the best defenses in the league simply via that. Third downs are just going to be a nightmare. So that interests me more than adding Travis Hunter to that mix of wide receivers. Obviously, you do need a playmaker. I'm not denying that that's also a need, but you don't need the two-wayness that really bumps Travis Hunter, in my opinion, above Abdul Carter if you're weighing the two. You wouldn't need his play at cornerback. You have a full complement of cornerback. So,
but it's also talked about trading the cornerback too. I mean, there's been some rumblings around the league about trading corner. Here's the other part of that. Abdul Carter has injury history. I mean, that is a concern. We can't just gloss
Travis
over
does
that.
too.
But not like that. I mean, come on. He's got a foot injury. I mean, and he's had some other injuries, a shoulder injury. So there's injury issues there. But look, I'm with you. Normally, I would say I would grab the pass rusher. There's more value in that. And so I would take the pass rusher as well.
The one reason why I'm hesitant to get on board with you, Leger, and think that a quarterback's an option here is we talked about with the Giants a lot, their job security. I think it's underrated how much the Browns don't have job security at head coach and GM right now with how they've gone recently. I don't think if they have another down season, and if you draft a quarterback and you're starting a rookie quarterback, more often than not, it doesn't work out, right? More often than not, you're not going to the playoffs. If you have another dud, you could be out the door. So I think Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski are going to do whatever it takes to cobble together the roster to win right now. Because if they don't win right now, I do think there's a very real chance they're not head coach and GM next fall.
Okay, but maybe that's an urgency for Andrew Berry. If Kevin Stefanski's on the market next year, he'll get scooped up in about 15 seconds. So
yes, without a doubt.
He doesn't care. He doesn't care.
All right, let's get to number 3 overall pick. Where? Abdul Carter, obviously with Travis Hunter being the odds-on favorite for number 2. Abdul Carter is the massive favorite to go number 3 at -180. Travis Hunter at +250. Shedeur Sanders makes a little bit of a comeback here in +400, but the market seems to think that he's falling outside the top 3, which means if he falls outside the top 3, I don't know where he's going to fall to. There's not a great landing spot after this. Do we think the Giants are passing on Travis Hunter here, Leger?
Well, I mean, it depends on if you think he's gone at 2, right? If he's there at 3, they're definitely scooping him up. You mean Abdul Carter, though, right?
You mean no? He means Shedeur Sanders.
I meant Shedeur Sanders. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just think when you see what they've done this offseason, bringing in 2 veterans in Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson, it kind of leans towards them not taking a quarterback.
Yeah.
So I don't think they'll take one this year. I think maybe they'll look towards next year's draft. I know Joe Shane has come out and said he's not going to mess up the future of the franchise reaching for a quarterback. And I don't know how Shedeur Sanders would fit in Daboll's system. Now, again, if you're a good coach, you figure it out. And if you feel like Shedeur Sanders could be your guy now, when you look at the quarterback that's probably prone to be able to have success in New York, it is Shedeur Sanders, right? Because he's been under the lights his entire life. But again, I just don't know if the marriage between Daboll's offense and Shedeur Sanders' skill set fits. I lean towards them taking one of the top 2 players in this draft and Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. Now, to me, this is the interesting thing. What if the Browns do take Travis Hunter at 2? You're looking at number 3 in the Giants. It's the same scenario with Travis Hunter in picks 2, 3, and 4. The Giants are deep at defensive end or edge rusher, right? They took Kayvon Thibodeau in the top 5. Now he's played up and down, but they took Brian Burns, and paid him a boatload of money, and they just paid Chauncey Golston a lot of money to play the edge as well. So, like, do you take an Abdul Carter and now you got 4 deep and potentially trade somebody, or is this a scenario where they have to measure because Travis Hunter is gone? Do we take a Shedeur Sanders, or do we potentially even trade out of this spot and get some draft capital?
They'll take Abdul Carter because you can make him like a joker and move him around all over that defense. I think, look, when the Giants won their Super Bowls, they won it with defense. They won it with defensive pressure, and you can never have enough of those guys. So in that scenario, I'm with you. As far as Shedeur Sanders, hey, the reality is the NFL doesn't look at him the way everybody else is looking at him. They don't think he's a surefire quarterback. So there's concerns about him. That's why if you're the New York Giants and you went out and you signed Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson in lieu of taking Shedeur Sanders, you got a problem with Shedeur Sanders. That's the issue right there. And so would I take Shedeur Sanders? Probably, because I think this regime has to win. Let's be real. They're gone if they don't win. If you draft a rookie quarterback, you might get a little leeway. You might put him in after 3 or 4 games and he plays well down the stretch. You're going to say, oh, well, it's worked for him. We'll keep him for another year. That's not the situation in Cleveland because Stefanski will get a job right away. I don't know if Daboll and Shane will. So I think they should take the quarterback. I don't think they will. I don't love Shedeur Sanders like everybody else does, so I understand it.
My only pushback on that, my bad, Mike, but my only pushback on that, Peter, is like we've seen the history of this, right? With Justin Herbert, with the Chargers, and even though he played well, the coach still got fired. We saw this with Mitchell Trubisky with the Chicago Bears. Even though he played okay down the stretch, that coach still got fired. Oh, I'm just saying, like, usually if you take a quarterback just thinking it's going to help you, extend another year, it usually never works out.
Yeah.
It was more when they drafted Fields, they got fired, right? They cleaned house after that. That was
yeah. And
Trubisky too.
And as far as Herbert, that guy was going to get fired no matter what for being an idiot.
Oh my God.
Come on, he was.
Brad Staley.
Well, no, remember it was Coach. It was Anthony Lynn that was the head coach.
Oh no, yeah.
After that, Brandon Staley came in.
Okay.
Anthony Lynn wanted to take Herbert and turn him into a turn the ball and run the ball guy. Remember, that's all he wanted to do. That wasn't good either. But look, if you're the Giants, and you don't have a quarterback, and you think these two guys are going to save your job, you're out of your mind. So I mean, Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston are not saving anybody's jobs.
Correct.
Yeah. If I have a choice between Abdul Carter and Shedeur Sanders here at number 3, I'm going Abdul Carter. The beauty of Abdul Carter was that he only just started playing edge rusher. The guy was, as an off-ball linebacker prospect, still an elite prospect. He was still a top 10 sort of player. But Mike, you just considered him off-ball.
You're right. For the good of the franchise, it's smart to get Abdul Carter. For the good of Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, and then they're not winning the division with Abdul Carter or getting the playoffs or improving.
Yeah, that's the thing. You're not winning the division with anyone. Like Shedeur Sanders hits, you might not win the division. You're in a dogfighted division. It's going to be difficult.
But you could if you went 9, if you got to 9 wins, they wouldn't fire him.
Correct. You probably don't get fired. Yeah.
Right.
But I don't think you're doing that with the rookie, right?
Well, I'm just saying, I don't think you're doing it with Jameis or Russ either, though. That's the thing. So, like, why not swing at the rookie?
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, that brings us to this. The team to draft Shedeur Sanders, as it stands right now, the odds are the Saints at number 9 overall, your current favorites, plus 270. Hard to call them a massive favorite, though. No one has any clue at this point. Giants plus 370, Steelers plus 600, Browns plus 700, Jets plus 700, and the Rams rounding out at plus 1,100. Are there any values you like here? And I do think that there's a good chance Shedeur is falling, given that his dad came out, Dion came out and said he'll play wherever anyone drafts him. If he got to that point, that means I don't think he's on solid footing knowing who's going to draft him.
Well, I'll tell you what, I have my latest mock draft. I have the Saints taking him at 9.
Yeah.
And that, look, the Derek Carr thing's a failure. And not only that, they keep moving money around to try and keep him. He's a failure. Spencer Rattler can't be their quarterback. So if you're the Saints, you have to look at a quarterback. And again, we don't know how they feel about Shedeur Sanders. You know, there's a lot of differing opinions in the league on Shedeur Sanders. And, you know, some guys think he's a second-round pick. I've heard that from guys. So, but again, it would make sense for the Saints. You have to address that position. You have to get a quarterback. They don't have a guy who's their long-term answer. And the guy who's there isn't very good right now.
Yeah, without a doubt. And one of my – go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say the other thing is once you get to 9, you're not passing on Abdul Carter, right? You're not passing on a talent that's that caliber talent. It completely changes the calculus versus Shedeur Sanders versus like Shamar Stewart. You know, both those guys could be massive busts. So why not swing for the guy who could be the higher upside of QB?
Yeah, I'm like Peter. One of my few mocks, I had Shedeur going there. I just think Kellen Moore, ex-quarterback, gets to put his handprint on a quarterback there. Makes a lot of sense. But as far as bang for buck, I like that plus 600 with the Steelers, Mike. And the funny thing is, I was just at the owners meeting. Me and Pete were down there, and I talked to Matt Starks, who does the radio for the Steelers on game day. He's a sideline reporter. And I asked him this question. I said, say if Shedeur Sanders, you know, drops past like pick 10, 11, 12, the Steelers are at 21. Is there an outside chance that maybe they use some draft capital and finally, you know, get their quarterback of the future? And he thought, you know, maybe not this year, just because when you look at them giving up DK Metcalf, they gave up a second-round pick, so they don't have the draft capital that they would technically need to move up. But say he drops to like 15, 16, 17, like could they potentially, you know, group some picks together and maybe even next year's picks to move them up? We just don't know what's going to happen with this Aaron Rodgers saga. I could see Shedeur going to the Steelers at 21 or some pick between 18 to 21. if he's in striking distance for them to be able to gather enough draft capital to move up 2 or 3 spots.
And even if you sign Aaron Rodgers, even if he's on that
Right.
roster,
correct,
it still makes sense to draft him. My interesting theory or just idea is the Giants go Travis Hunter 3. So Travis Hunter's on the board. They go Travis Hunter 3. They have pick 35. If he starts falling to the mid-teens, they could make a package together. They could put a package together to go up and get Shedeur Sanders. Pair Shedeur Sanders with Travis Hunter in New York. And then you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get the elite playmaker, but then you also get the quarterback of the future. I think that's the team that if he does slide to the mid-teens, that I would see being willing to leapfrog the Steelers to go.
Well, here's the other part of that. They don't care about giving up future draft picks.
Exactly.
They're not going to be around.
They're not going to be
That's
there
what
if they don't win.
Ryan Pace did. I mean, he went from like 21 to 11 to go get Justin Fields.
Yeah.
And then his job was gone the next year. Could very well be the case this one. All right. Last guy who's got a prop on the board here, Ashton Genty, Boise State running back. There's 2 teams way ahead of the pack right now, favorites to draft him. Raiders, minus 125. People buying the hype to go number 6 overall. Bears at plus 210. And then it's a crapshoot after that. Saints at plus 900. Cowboys plus 1,000. Pats plus 1,600. And Jets plus 1,800. I'll be honest, I don't see the Pats or Jets pulling that trigger, but crazier things have happened in the NFL draft. I do. My favorite bet there is the Bears. I think ultimately he probably is a Raider, but I think should he not get drafted by the Raiders, I think there's a very good chance he's a Chicago Bear.
Okay, in my latest mock draft, I have the Bears trading to 5 with Jacksonville to draft Genty. And I hear Ben Johnson wants Genty, and he thinks the Raiders are going to take Genty. So to get to that, you have to go to 5 to get him. And so I think
love that for the Jags.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing. If the Jaguars are stuck at 5, he would be in play for them. That's how good he is. And that's look, there's 3 elite players in this draft. 3. Hunter, Carter, and Genty. They're the elite players in the draft. And you guys know how I feel about running backs.
I was about to say, Pete.
Well, no, I was going to say, if he's an elite player, I wouldn't draft him. Because I think this is a great running back class. I think by the time you get to year 5, you're going to start talking about replacing him, or do you want to pay him or whatever. But the bottom line is he's an elite runner. He's an elite player. And so if you're stuck at 5 in Jacksonville, what do you do? What do you do? If Hunter and Carter are off the board and you're stuck at 5, what do you do? Your options are Mason Graham, who's got questions. You know, he's little. He's not a great pass rusher. And then you got what else? McMillan doesn't run, so you're going to take him at 5. So I think Genty could be in play at 5 if they were sitting there and they were stuck there. But if they're not stuck, I think the Bears are a logical place for them. I think they go up and go get them.
The interesting thing, I alluded to it earlier. Me and Pete were down at the owners' meeting. I actually sat down with GM John Spytek, and he told me his son said if the Raiders don't draft Genty, that he's changing his fandom and he's not going to be a Raiders fan. So, when you look at where's the most logical place for him, it's obviously the Las Vegas Raiders. They need more playmakers. And to Pete's point, though, Ben Johnson coming from Detroit, where he had Jahmyr Gibbs, and people saying Genty kind of has that skill set. Now, they didn't throw him the ball a lot last year, but if you go to his 23 tape, had over 43 catches. They used him more as a decoy this past year. We talked to him at the combine about that as well. So they put him on a lot of flare routes to decoy him to, so the defense would slide. That way other guys get one-on-one opportunities. So he's a guy that definitely can catch the ball out of the backfield. They just didn't use that skill set as much last year as they did in 23. So when you look at, Ben Johnson being there, it makes a lot of sense. He wants that type of guy in his backfield because look at what they did in free agency. They refortified the interior of that offensive line. They're going to run the football. And when you talk about a workhorse that Ashton Genty is, he fits what Ben Johnson wants to do. But I think the Raiders, a lot of people don't talk about this enough. They actually have a really good young offensive line besides Colton Miller, who's actually a really good left tackle as well. So I think Genty fits them perfectly as well. So this would be interesting because I think Genty fits in that category where positional value, it doesn't make sense to take him that high. But to Pete's point, he's an elite player. So you base it off of him being an elite player. That's why you want to take him.
By the way, the
Yeah.
Bears have an extra second-round pick that fits into the equation of moving up, and they would trade the second of their 2 second-round picks to go up and get Genty.
That's the one from Carolina, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that, I mean, people have been saying, is Genty, Jahmyr Gibbs in that offense? He's like Gibbs and Montgomery. Ben Johnson, I don't think he needs necessarily Gibbs' skill set. The thought behind drafting Gibbs was, we just need an elite run game. We just need to he wants to have a top 3 run game, because then everything else in the passing game that they do works. You have that, everything else works. And so how do you get a top 3 run game? Well, a back like Ashton Genty will get you there real quick. And obviously all the additions they made to that offensive line are going to help as well. So yeah, I just don't think he falls past 10. I don't think there's any world.
I think you're gonna. If Ben Johnson wants him, he's gonna have to go get him.
Ooh, that would be.
I think the Raiders will, and I think he thinks the Raiders are going to take him.
Oh yeah.
I hope we see some fireworks for Genty come draft day, and I love that plus 210 number. Given all that, all right, we're gonna take a quick break. After that, going to go through our big board draft review. We before the combine said who we thought was going to move up the most. Well, we have a winner, and we'll get to it right after this. All right, the final standings from our big board review. Leger in first with plus 110 points of movement. Pete in second with plus 78. And then me taking up the rear at plus 71. I don't know how.
Here's the bottom line.
Because I had 3 great calls and then just one stinker.
Draft rankings, which aren't right. So that's the problem.
My thing is, my league would have been even bigger if it was the updated big board. I think this was the one we had put this show together before they did the update. Because my first guy is not even in the top 400, which is utterly ridiculous because he's probably going in the 3rd round.
All right. So you had BJ Adams, who was the one who went off the board entirely. Not sure how exactly that happened. Again, I'm not sure the calculations made to put together this draft board, but you can go, I think it's just an amalgamation of like a bunch of top hundreds. And so if a guy's not in a top 100, well, then he gets left off entirely.
I think it's based on you. It's based on you.
Yeah, it's all the guys that put their big boards together.
So you're part of the problem.
Well, I only did a top 100. That's what I'm saying. I didn't get past 100. And sorry, but BJ Adams didn't make the top 100. But you had Zay Frazier moving up big time, going from 156 to 69. Yeah. Femi Oladejo only moved up one spot, 149 to 148.
Which is criminal.
Kobe King went up from 172 to 100. And then you had Baron Sorrell, didn't move an inch as well, 136 to 136.
Criminal
Pete,
again.
You had LaJohntay Webster actually drop from 238 to 243.
Stupidity.
That is
Jaden Blue actually dropped from 258 to 264.
That's stupidity.
But you had Kyle Williams, the biggest mover of anyone, 222 to 97.
And he might go in the bottom of the 1st round, by the way.
And he might go, yeah.
I don't understand how he was ranked in 222 to begin with.
Especially since, like, he was 38th on my board. I don't know where everyone else.
Bro, I was going to say, like, ranked. Going to the Senior Bowl week, I had him as a 2nd-round pick. Like, how was he ranked that low?
Yeah, that was weird.
He was not in any top 100s, though. I didn't see him in any other top 100s looking around at Kyle Williams back in the day. But now the cat's out of the bag, I think, with him. You had Kyle McCord. He actually dropped from 109 to 120.
Okay, that's bad. I can tell you with 100% certainty after being at the league meetings last week, that is bad information on that board right there. That guy might go in the top of the 2nd round, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think he will.
Yeah.
And then Jamari Caldwell dropped from 161 to 186, which, again, he's top 100 on my board.
He's, by the way, just a little hint, he might end up being the captain of the better than team. That guy's a beast.
He's great.
And he's in the league.
I think he's better than Harmon.
Loves him. The league loves him.
I had Jalen Noel, Iowa State wide receiver, goes from 166 to 90. I had Nick Martin, who screwed me. He went from.
You might have had the wrong Iowa State.
Iowa State.
Yeah.
He went up 76 spots. That was my best
Pete.
one.
That's what I'm talking about, Pete.
But I do have Jaden. Why am I blanking on
Higgins?
Name? Higgins. I was gonna say Daniels, but I'm like, that is not right. Jaden Higgins. He's a top 50 player on my board, so I think he moved up a bit himself. He had a great combine. Nick Martin screwed me. He ran a 4.53. I don't know why people dropped him from 146 to 197, but alas, that's the reason I'm toast here. Luke Kandra, Cincinnati guard, moved up 61 spots. Chase Lunt actually moved down 24 spots. The UConn tackle, I don't think he actually tested. And then Danny Stutzman ran a 4.52 and still only moved up 9 spots, the Oklahoma linebacker. That's it, though. Leger wins that exercise. Let's get to who's rising, though, in the NFL draft. I have my list. You guys tell me your thoughts on these and maybe who you have as risers. I think right now, Donovan Ezeraku, the Boston College edge, I think he's had a great pre-draft process via the Senior Bowl to the Combine, where he had a 35.5-inch vertical, 6'9" 4.3 cone, 4.19 short shuttle, 9.11 broad jump, all those numbers over 80th percentile for the position. He had 16.5 sacks this last year. Yeah, he needs to get stronger, but the frame is truly insane. He is 6'2", but a 6'10" 3/8 inch wingspan. One of the largest, 85th percentile wingspan for the edge position, only 6'2". I think Travion Henderson's moving up. Just the more people get to talk to this guy, the more just basically people watch his tape. There's just not a lot of holes in his game. Great locker room guy. And I think Maxwell Harrison, the Kentucky corner, after running a 4.28, 39.5-inch vertical, and 10'9" broad jump, I think he's moving up boards as well. I expect him to be a first rounder. Pete, what are your thoughts on that? And do you have any risers yourself?
Okay, I agree with the BC kid. I think he's going to go back into the first round. I could see the Ravens taking him. They have 3 expiring contracts on their defensive edge rushers, so I think they could take him. I love that one. Hairston is, to me, I'm going to put this out there because I firmly believe this. I think he's the best corner in the draft.
Oh,
yes.
really?
I think he's the best corner in the draft. And by the way, guys I talk to love him. He tackles. He's tough. I know he's small. That's the concern.
I'm about to say he's frail.
But he throws his body around, though. I'm telling you, that kid is tough. And then who was your third one?
It was Travion Henderson.
Travion Henderson.
Okay, here's my and I've heard this from a bunch of guys. What do you think the most number of carries he had in the game last year was?
It was under 16.
It was 16. And to me, that's a concern. And can he handle the carries? Can he handle being a guy? So, and again, it's a deep running back class. So you take him and you wait to get a couple in the third or fourth, one in the third, one in the fourth, one in the seventh. There are guys in this draft you can get. So, but I do think the BC kid is rising. I think Hairston's going to go higher than people think.
So with Hairston's injury, It actually was a minor injury this past year.
He had an infection.
He then got infected by a needle at the hospital. So it turned out it wasn't like a big shoulder injury. It was not out of his control, basically.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Jahdae Barron's my number one corner. I mean, I like Harrison. I think he will probably sneak into the back of the first. Again, his frail size does give me some concerns. But to your point, Pete, he's tough. It's kind of, you put him in the Sauce Gardner, right? A lot of people wondered about his size. And will he tackle now? He struggled tackling this last year, but his first 2 years,
he didn't want to
tackling wasn't an issue.
On that Jets
it wasn't an issue for the Jets. I'm like you guys. I think Donovan Ezeraku is definitely going in the first round. I think he solidified it with the Combine, had a really good Senior Bowl. People worried about him playing against the run. I go say watch that North Carolina tape, a team that runs the ball emphatically. That was his best game against the run. He looked really good in that game versus Marion Hampton in that offensive line. One of the risers we kind of talked about, I had on the big board, Zay Frazier. I was trying to tell everybody about this kid from UTSA. I called 2 of his games this last year, and not a lot of people knew about him. And there automatically will be some comparisons to Reek Woolen because they went to the same school. But this kid actually has played corner his whole life, but he's only started 1 year, guys. So, I mean, the upside is going to be out of this world. At the East-West game, he's a guy that will get in your face. He can play zone and man coverage. And I liken it to this, fellas. After week 6 of college football last year, I don't believe there was a corner in the nation that played with more confidence than Zay Frazier when you go back and watch the tape. Like his understanding of route concepts and zone coverage, you could tell he started getting comfortable because this was his first year playing, like starting for UTSA. So tackling, understanding route concepts, and then the overall speed, if I'm not mistaken, Mike, what did he run, like a 4.33 or something, like something crazy at the Combine. So he has the top end recovery speed as well. So I think he's a guy that's going to go top of the second.
Ravel is another guy, by the way, who's moving up because he's checking out.
Yeah, Shalon Revel.
Yeah. And so when you look at him, I think he could end up going at the back end of the first round as well.
Yeah, Revel's
medical.
It's
awesome. Yeah.
He's physically, I mean, he looks like a like a shooting guard in basketball. The guy's body type and just fluidity is insane. Zay Frazier, I'll say the speed. Matthew Golden post route Texas game, he is catching up to him like running hip to hip. Matthew Golden, the 4.29, like not as fast as Zay Frazier. Zay Frazier was faster than him, is faster than him on a football field. All right, let's get some guys who are falling. A couple because of, off field, what they're doing. I think Luther Burden, the Missouri wide receiver, may not go in the first round. And it's not that he's necessarily a bad guy or anything. It's just effort. And it shows on his tape. It shows in the way coaches have talked about him. The quote here I have from the Bob McGinn articles, make sure to go check that out if you haven't on Go Long, is this. He's a 5-star. They kiss his ass for 3 years just to keep him there. The girlfriend is his manager. The mom is a problem, but he's a good player on Saturday, and he's very ordinary Monday through Friday. That's an area he's going to have to improve. I thought his tape from 2023 was better than 2024, but I also thought the quarterback play was a little better a year ago. If you take him, you're gritting your teeth that you're going to have a Sunday player who isn't going to add as much to your team the other 5-6 days of the week. He's a shaky first rounder and a little more of a second rounder because you can't get anybody to really sign off on a clean bill of health as far as the personality and in the intangibles. That being said, and again, given the fact that his tape wasn't that good, I think he's falling. James Pierce, the other one. The quote is here, again, from Go Long, Bob McGinn article. There's some concerns on the character, a lot of emotional outbursts and inconsistency. At Tennessee, he was literally a no-go. You ask somebody there, hey, if you had a chance to come to the league, would you bring this guy? They're like, absolutely not, on his own program. The whole team's working out, and he's in his apartment. They didn't know where he was. James Pierce, haven't seen him a lot of first-round mocks, I think, because of that. And then the last one, Azareye'h Thomas, Florida State cornerback. The testing was just not good pre-draft, unfortunately. 4.6 40, 10.2 broad jump, 4.21 shuttle. It's a solid shuttle, solid broad jump, but a 4.6 40 is just at a position where speed is at a premium. You're not going to find a lot of teams, I think, in the top 50 where he was probably going to go based off his tape, willing to pull that trigger. But he's young, still only 20 years old. We'll see where he ends up, but not great there for them. I think all those guys could fall on draft day.
Okay, Pierce is falling, and I didn't have him in my first round today, and in large part because a lot of the teams talk about the same type of concerns about him. He would be a top 10 pick, by the way.
You think so?
Correct.
Based off tape?
Yes.
No question.
Yes, no doubt. He would be a top 10 pick, which tells you the concern if he doesn't go in the first round. No question about it. The 40 time for the Florida State corner is definitely concerning. He's a good player, but he doesn't play to that.
Yeah.
He doesn't play fast enough. And then what was your third one?
Luther Burden.
Yeah,
Burden.
Look, more than the character concerns for me for Luther Burden is I don't think he plays to his speed. That always worries me. What is he? What is he? Is he Debo Samuel-esque? Is he? I don't know. He doesn't play to his speed for me. So I didn't love him as a first round pick anyways. As far as some guys I hear could fall, Gray Zabel might fall down a little bit.
Really?
They don't love him as much as maybe Draft Colt Twitter did when they went to the combine. I mean, the Senior Bowl, and he had a good Senior Bowl week. I think he could fall a little bit. I don't know if he's going to fall, that far, but he's going to fall a little bit. I'm trying to think of other guys. Mike Green is another one. Mike Green has talent. Mike Green has a ton of talent. But where do you pick him? And there's some stuff in his past that showed up a little bit. He talked about it at the combine, so it's like he's not hiding from it. But he's another guy that could fall a little bit.
Do you think he falls out of the first beat?
Depends what your PIs find out. You know how these.
Okay, I mean, I've talked to a few teams, and everybody I talked to still has him on the board. But the James Pierce, I'm with you 100%. Actually, in my latest mock, I had him falling to the Eagles at 32. Because it seems like that would be, if that's a team that was going to take somebody that potentially has some character issues, that has the locker room to deal with that, it would be like Howie Roseman in the Eagles. Another guy I have falling, and Mike, maybe you can help me out with his last name. Princely
Miele.
Yeah, he was a guy that showed really good bend on tape in a few games. And then he goes to the Senior Bowl, didn't look good, didn't test well at the combine, struggled throughout the drills. He was a guy a lot of people had consideration for back in the first round, maybe early second. And now I'm hearing he might even go in the fourth round. So he's a guy who was one of my fallers.
Well, and he is the guy who, in that, I don't know if you saw the viral video, it was after, I think, the Florida game this year, is literally running up, trying to fight a fan on the way to the bus. Like that right there, probably not a great signal to the NFL.
And he transferred from Florida, didn't he?
And he transferred.
Correct.
Yeah.
And he's also one of the, the intra SEC transfers. You're always like, those guys are red flags. Walter Nolan is one who could be falling as well, because I think he's been to like 5 schools in 6 years over the past, just like those guys, the shifty.
He's got some red flags as well.
So anyone who fits that kind of bill might be falling. All right, we're going to take a quick break. After that, we're going to get to our day 2 versions of day 1 prospects. If you miss out on the guys that you've been hearing so much in these first round mocks, we're going to give you the next best thing coming up right after this.
She knows, and I know she knows.
All right, we'll kick it off with Abdul Carter. High bar here, the defensive end from Penn State. If you don't get Abdul Carter, Leger,
this has to be a guy that goes in the 2nd or 3rd round, right? That's
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe they move up, come drafted, but just a guy who's not right now really getting a ton of first round hype.
Okay.
Is there a guy, Leger, after that could be a discount version of Abdul Carter?
Now, the guy I'm about to talk about, Mike, I've talked about it ad nauseum, but I'm hearing that there could be some potential buzz for him to go late in the first, but right now he's slated as the 2nd round. That's Femi Oladejo. And he actually had the same trajectory as Abdul Carter in regards to playing off-ball linebacker, and he only played on the edge 1 year. I mean, you go to that Penn State game, him and Carson Schlesinger, like that was a 2-man wrecking crew versus Penn State. They literally kept them in that game because the UCLA offense did nothing for them that game. But Femi Oladejo could not be blocked that game. So he's a guy, as far as when you talk about his trajectory and upside, because he's only played 1 year on the edge, he's going to get significantly better. So he's my guy. If you miss out on Abdul Carter, which most of the NFL will, because he's probably going to go to top 4 picks, Femi Oladejo is your guy day 2.
And my guy is James Pierce. Look, I could take him in the 2nd round. I'll take you in the 2nd round.
You'll take him in the 2nd?
Yeah, you're damn right I will, because he's got the talent to be a dominant player, and I'll bring him into. I might not want to blow my 1st round pick on the chance, but I will take a chance in the 2nd round because I think you can have a real feast, or it could be a famine, but I think you could have a real feast on your hands.
Yeah, mine was Femi Oladejo too, for all the reasons you mentioned, and also just like the frame. I think part of Abdul Carter is just like magic, is the guy is just built the way you'd put together a defensive end. Similarly for Oladejo, 6'10" wingspan, 6'3", 259, and that versatility. I'll also throw Braden Swinson in there, the LSU defensive end. I think another similar body type that he kind of just knows how to rush the passer. He doesn't have the high-end physical traits that Carter does, but the guy is an NFL-ready pass rusher. All right, let's go to offensive tackle. Armand Membu, the physical freak from Missouri. If you miss out on Armand Membu in the first, who is the next best thing on day 2, Pete?
I'm going to go with the kid from Arizona, Savanaya.
Okay.
I think he. Now, having said that, I might move him to guard because I think he can be an all-world guard. I mean, look, he can play tackle. He can be a dominant guard. I think he can be one of those special dominant power guards in the NFL. But he can be a good right tackle. And again, you guys know how I feel about Membo. I'm not in on that one 100% like everybody else is. And so I would like to get Savanaya in the 2nd round if I were a team, because I think he's going to be a dominant player, whether you play him at right tackle or right guard. I think he could be an all-world guard, but I'm apt to move tackles to guard. That's usually my MO. So I think he could be a good guard.
I actually like this one, Pete. I don't think enough people are talking about Savanaya, and maybe it's because of Jordan Morgan from last year, and he made the transition to guard, which I know you love as well. But watching his tape from Arizona, going into the Senior Bowl, I couldn't understand why everybody was so hyped, because at the Senior Bowl, I just didn't see it from him. But when I went back and watched the tape, I was like, oh, that's why they're hyped. Like, this guy's footwork is elite. He position blocks, but it's not like he doesn't play physical. Like, he still plays physical as well. So I like that one. I went Josh Connerly from Oregon. And when you turn on the tape versus Penn State, I thought he gave Abdul Carter his best work. Like Abdul Carter struggled against him, and Abdul Carter didn't really struggle against anybody this year. And at the Senior Bowl, we saw him be able to kick over to the right tackle. Now, Mike Green did run him over at right tackle, but again, that's like literally tying your hand behind your back if you haven't taken reps at right tackle. But at least he showed he was willing to do it. And I think this kid's young too, if I'm not mistaken, Mike. He might only be like 20 or just turned 21 years old. So the upside is there. I know he was earlier in the process, he was talked about as potentially going in the first, but I think he'll go in the second. And I think the upside is there for him. So if you miss, out on Armand Membu, I think Josh Connerly makes a lot of sense for you in the second round.
If I had to bet right now, though, I bet Connerly goes in the first round.
Yeah.
He's too physically gifted. He's put up too much good tape, like you mentioned, the Carter tape, others throughout the season, and you've seen too much improvement from him, and just the need throughout the NFL.
Could you see the Eagles taking him as the eventual Lane Johnson?
They could, like at pick 30, but that's what I'm saying. But I have him like back in the first, early second. So
you botched the exercise. It's supposed to be a day 2.
He could.
If he goes in the second, then I did perfect.
Okay, you got it.
My guy is Charles Grant, and I think the William & Mary offensive tackle. I think he is going to be special in the NFL. I just see the traits it takes to play tackle at a high level, even if his pre-draft process was non-existent with injury, didn't play at Senior Bowl, didn't test at all. I don't need testing to know that guy can move the way an NFL tackle is supposed to move. So that's my guy on day 2. All right. Ted McMillan, the big-bodied wide receiver, since you're really not finding a Travis Hunter, not just this year, but any year. We want Ted McMillan. If you want Ted McMillan, who is the next best thing, Pete?
How do you say the kid from Stanford's name?
Alec Ayomanor.
Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
That's him. By the way, 4.55, same time. And when you run that kind of time, it's always concerning to me. But go put the tape on what the kid did against Travis Hunter a couple years ago. He abused him. And Travis Hunter, the corner, was abused that day by that kid. So if you're not going to get Ted McMillan, who doesn't run that well, why not take another kid who abused Travis Hunter and can make a lot of plays? So I think his 40 time actually might have been better.
It's 4.43.
Yeah, he ran at his school.
There it is.
You know how that is. They get you 38 yards and then they time you.
No, he ran a 4.43 at the combine, Pete. He's fast.
Did he?
Yeah, Ayomanor can roll.
He can run.
Yeah,
he's a good blocker too. By the way, he'll block.
He's physical.
I think he's the best one in the class.
Physical.
Yeah, so I would take him.
Yeah, I like that one, Pete. I turned on that SMU tape, and they actually have a really good defense. And he was getting after DBs, even though they were down 21-0 in this game. You would not know it by the way he was playing. And then, literally in cover 2, the corner drops back instead of squatting, and he jumps over both of them and catches a touchdown in the back of the end zone. So I love that one. I'm going with the guy you talked about earlier, Pete, from Iowa State. Not Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins. I think to me is going to be a star in the NFL. We talk about being 6'4" and being able to get in and out of breaks the way he's able to do, the way he's able to shift his weight. And then in the red zone, being a true weapon to go up and get the football. I think there's going to be great value with taking him in the second round. So if you miss Tet in the first round, I think Jaden Higgins in the second round is definitely your guy.
Yes, I think both those guys mentioned I like. I'd probably lean more towards Higgins if you're looking for McMillan's skill set, but I expect both of them. I mean, you have that spot right at the top of the second round with Tennessee, with Las Vegas, with New England, where Jets. Those guys, in my opinion, aren't making it past. Yeah, those guys aren't making it past that group. They're not making it past 42, where the Jets are picking in the second round. They are those top of the second round sort of prospects. And I could even see one of them sneaking in the first. And I think Ayomanor goes higher than people are expecting just because blocking. Guys, people care about that at the NFL level more than, you're running the those highlights don't go viral when you tweet them out, but they go viral in NFL, scout meetings because that's what they need in the running game at the next level. All right, Ashton Genty. If you miss out on Ashton Genty, and again, we think it's going to take you a top 10 pick to get him, so you're probably going to miss out. Who is the next best thing in the second round here, Leger?
Well, I would have got to maybe go in the third round because I wanted to follow the exercise, Pete. We said day 2. Yeah. Day 2 is round 2 and 3. And this is where Pete likes taking guys, third and the fourth round, right? That's the value, right, Pete? Mm-hmm. That's where you take running backs. R.J. Harvey from UCF.
Homer, Homer.
I'm just saying, when you look at their stature, they're actually pretty close in stature to each other. They're both shorter backs, both have really great contact balance, both can catch the ball in the backfield, and they both have the speed to take it a distance. I know that was the question about R.J. Harvey, which I couldn't understand why, because when you watch tape, nobody chased him down on tape. And I think he goes to the combine and runs, a 4.41, and everybody was like, well, box checked. He's going to be for sure a day 2 pick. So if you miss out on Ashton Jeanty and you want to get great value in the 3rd round, I think R.J. Harvey is your guy.
I'm going to go with Tootin. I think Tootin for Virginia Tech. And I know he has callous disregard for the football, as they like to say. He fumbles a little too much, but he's got home run speed, man. And I'll tell you what, he's a tougher runner than he gets. You look at his speed guy and you say, was he tough enough? You put on the tape, he's tough enough. He can run between the tackles. There's a play, I think it was against North Carolina, where he popped inside, hit the guard in the butt because the guard didn't move anybody, popped outside and ran away from people for a long touchdown. I think it was North Carolina. He is my guy that can be like Jeanty. I love him. I'll be honest with you, I would take him in the 3rd round before I would take Jeanty in the top 10. That's just me because of the value of the position.
I'll go with Quinshawn Judkins. I think a guy who could very easily be a bell cow at the next level. Great contact balance. That's obviously Jeanty's like trump card trait that he's so elite at. Maybe as good as we've seen at the collegiate level. So Judkins is right up there. Probably top 3 in that regard in this draft class. So high-end athlete too. Gosh, there's just a lot of options. That's kind of why we're saying, like, you don't necessarily need to go top 10. Now, obviously, if you want that elite run game, you probably should. But there's just so many backs in this draft class that fit that bill as guys who can be high-end stars to the next level that you'll probably be able to find one in the 3rd, probably even on day 3. All right, linebacker, Jihad Campbell. If you don't get Jihad Campbell, he's probably going in the 1st round. Leger, who is the next best thing in day 2?
I would go Carson Schlesinger, but I don't think he has a chance to go in the back of the 1st round. You know how I feel about him. I think when you're just talking about pure off-ball linebacker, he's the number 1 guy in this draft. But I went with Kobe King from Penn State. Stays square, does a really good job being physical in regards to punching offensive linemen, staying square, shock and shedding, getting off the ball carrier. It has really good instincts as well. I think he's a guy that's either going to go back in the 2nd or maybe even early 3rd that can come in day 1 and potentially be a starter for you.
I'm going to go with a guy, and I don't think he's not going to go in the 2nd or 3rd round, but maybe the 4th or 5th. But he's going to be one of your core special teams player, and he's going to play for a long time as a backup and maybe ultimately become a starter. And that's Jack Kaiser. I think Jack Kaiser.
I like that one.
I think Jack Kaiser's a good football player, man. I'll tell you what. Look, is he Jack? No. But what he is a good, sound, fundamental football player who can play. He will be a core special teams player, bare minimum. So I'd put Jack Kaiser as my guy.
Kaiser's a good football player. And I agree with that assessment. I'm not sure he's a starter. Not sure I'm not sure. I know he's not Jihad Campbell. But you'll get.
But if I had to pick a guy similar, like who had this similar skill, what's the kid at Georgia's name? Smile Munden.
Smile Munden.
Munden. Yeah. I'm not as high on him.
Well, he's got the skills, the athletic ability, the
that's what I'm saying. But the physical.
But will the coach take it and translate it? That's the question. But if you look at pure ability, he has the ability to become a run chase linebacker.
I'm going to go with Demetrius Knight, South Carolina linebacker. Crazy career. He started off a quarterback, switched to linebackers.
More of a thumper though than that. Yeah,
he's definitely a downhill blitzer, thumper, not necessarily a coverage linebacker. All right, Mason Graham. If you want Mason Graham, which Pete doesn't. Pete hates Mason Graham.
No,
if you want Mason Graham,
Pete actually likes Mason Graham.
I like Mason Graham. I just have concerns about.
Not at number 5.
By the way, I get to this point in the process and I have concerns about everybody.
That's valid.
I'm the anti-Ryan Wilson. He loves everybody. I hate everybody. That's the difference.
All right, so if you want Mason Graham, Pete, who is the next best thing on day 2?
I mean, it's my guy. It's Caldwell.
Jamari Caldwell.
Yeah, love him.
Knew where that was going.
I love
you
him.
think he goes day 2, Pete?
I do think he goes day 2. I think he's going to go in the 3rd round. I look. There's a play, and I highlight this play, and when I write him up in the Better Than team. There's a play against Ohio State in the playoff game. They're getting the living snot kicked out of them. The second to last play of the game is a wide run, and he chases it down to the almost to the sideline and makes the tackle. That speaks volumes about a kid as a person and a player. But more than that, he pushes the pocket, he penetrates. He's more than just a big sluggo nose tackle. He can do a lot of things. I think he's a steal for whoever gets him.
Yeah, I like that one, Pete. The crazy thing is he can pass rush. Like, he was put on a pass rush display at the Senior Bowl. I think people forget. You go back to the 23 tape. If I'm not mistaken, he had 6.5 sacks. They just didn't use him in nickel as much this year because they had Harmon and they had Birch and other guys as well. But I think he's a guy that can help you out. He could be a 3-down player. And honestly, you already heard me say this on record, Pete. I think he's going to be better than Harmon when it's all said and done. My guy's T.J. Sanders from South Carolina. And this guy really comes out of his hips. He's a physical player. And we talked about interior pass rush. He gives you that as well. He was a guy that ran through somebody at the Senior Bowl, literally put the guard on his back in one-on-one pass rush. He's a guy I think is going to go at the top of the second. I know some people will say maybe late first, but I think he's going to go top of the second. He's going to start a D-tackle from you from day one.
All right, my guy is, in my opinion, maybe the most underrated player in the draft class right now, CJ West from Indiana.
Love him.
I think he is. I think he's very similar body type to Mason Graham. They're both shorter side, not great length, but the leverage he plays with. I mean, this guy was a one-man run defense last year for Indiana. It's just like he never gets blocked cleanly. It's the same thing with Mason Graham. You just don't get that guy cleanly in the running game. Don't get CJ West cleanly in the run game. And then he tested off the charts. Combine 4.95 at like 315 for a 6-footer is freaky stuff. All right. Last one here. Lachey, your guy. If you want Jahdae Barron, and you do, who is the next best thing? Who is the next best thing?
Skill set wise, I would say Billy Bowman, but because it's high, he's probably going to go in the 4th round. But I'm going to go Jacob Parrish. And I don't think enough people have been talking about the corner from Kansas State. Oh, that's your guy?
That's mine. I love him.
Put on that Arizona tape. He gave Ted McMillan that issue. And I don't think
the
any
Iowa
other
State
corner
tape
did that this year. Yeah.
And the Iowa State tape.
This guy reminds me a lot of DJ Reed, right? Shorter corner, physical, has the flexibility to play in the slot as well. Will get after you in man coverage, is a really good zone cover corner, and can run. Yes. So I don't think a lot of people have talked about him enough when you talk about some of these top corners, but he may go in the 3rd, but I would take him in the 2nd in the heartbeat. Jacob Parrish. That if you miss on Jahdae Barron, I think Jacob Parrish is your guy.
Okay, I'm going with a guy who not a lot of people are talking about. And when you look at him, he's going to end up being either a star nickel or you could play him outside. The Wally kid from Minnesota. And I don't know if you guys have watched him, but my God, he's a competitive, tough, physical corner. He's not a big guy. And by the way, in talking to teams around the league, there is a lot of buzz about him in the 2nd, 3rd round, and he's a short corner. I don't know if you guys have watched it, but if you haven't, I would go watch him because he's really good.
What was the name again?
Yeah,
I don't think I have him.
Justin
Wally. I have him as like a 4th round pick. He's a really good player.
I don't have to go watch him. My guy was Jacob Parrish. Parrish is. I'm with you, Lucia. I watched his tape and I'm just like, this will work at the NFL level. He's such a high-end athlete. And he's short, but he's not small. Like the guy is built. And so when he goes against taller corners, like he's got a 6'3" wingspan at under 5'10". So he's still long enough to play at the catch point. And then like he's so dense that bigger corners, bigger wide receivers, so like Ted McMillan, like Jaden Higgins, he just gets underneath them at the line of scrimmage and pushes those guys off their path so easily. I love the DJ Reed comp, not only because they went to K-State, but like the game is so similar. And I think he can play slot. I think he can play outside. I just think he's a darn good cornerback. He might end up being a top 50 player on my board. I think he's way underrated and only a junior coming out. So not, a lot of seniors, a lot of 5th years. He's only 3 years of college football. So his best could be in front of him. All right. That's our show for today. We'll be back later this week. Me and BMAC breaking down this cornerback class in our final episode of the Draft Lab. Thanks so much to Pete and Leger for joining. Thanks so much for you guys for tuning in. Until next time, keep pushing.